I've put together a list of 10 of the biggest doubles mistakes that I see. And let me tell you, I've seen a lot. As in my 19 years of coaching so far, I've worked with players from club level all the way through to tour level. And so during this video, I want you to think hard about your game. And if any of these mistakes resonate with you, put them into practice in your next training session. As I honestly believe that just by becoming aware of these mistakes that you're making, you're going to become better at them. And at the end of the video, let me know in the comments below which ones you're guilty of. Let's get into it. The first big mistake that I see players make in doubles is ball watching. And what I mean by ball watching is watching the ball as it passes you back to your partner. The big problem with this is as soon as you turn your back to the court, you have no idea of what your opponents are doing at the other end. For all you know, the baseline player may have ghosted into the net, the volleyer may have come across to poach, and as soon as you turn back to face them, the ball's going to come at you, you've lost the point. By keeping your eyes forwards at the other end of the court, you're going to gain far more information. You don't actually need to see your partner or the ball to know where they're hitting it. You'll get all of that information from looking at your opponents at the other end. So tip number one is to avoid ball watching, lock onto your opponents at the other end. And once your partner's sent the ball back over the net and the ball's in your vision, that's when you can lock onto the tennis ball. The second big mistake that I see is players protecting their alley or their tram lines. They stand out by this singles line because they're afraid of being passed down the line. In fact, what you should really be trying to do is tempt your opponents to pass you down the line. This is a much tougher shot for them to make than this. So next time you're at the net, don't be so precious over your tram line. If you get passed once or twice, great. Let your opponent keep doing it because that is a high risk shot. Ideally, you want to position yourself pretty much in the center between the center line and the singles line. Yes, you may move out wide if your partner sends the ball out wide. Tracking the ball is going to help you to plug those bigger gaps, but your standard position should be somewhere near the center. This is going to give you far more opportunities to get involved in the point and probably create more unforced errors from your opponent at the other end. So tip number two, stop protecting your tram lines. Mistake number three kind of links to mistake number two, but it's when you're at the baseline, going down the line too often. As we just said, going down the line is a high risk move and you should save it for the right moments. Honestly, I tend to see club players going far too often down the line. Now, yes, if your opponent at the other end at the net is very weak, then you can target them. Or if they're a player that's really proactive at the net, looking for interceptions through the middle of the court, going down the line once or twice can help to keep them honest. But generally, when you're behind the baseline, your aim should be to avoid the volleyer, whether that's pinning the baseline opponent back, pulling them wide, or even lobbing the net player. Save those down the line shots for when you've got an opportunity to finish the point. That may be when you get a short ball or when the volleyer is out of position. But as one caveat to that, I do like to go down the line on the very first shot, just to send a message to your opponents at the other end. But generally, only go down the line for a reason. As long as you have a reason, I'll let you off. Mistake number four is moving laterally as the net player. Instead, we should be looking at moving forwards and backwards or diagonally. Now, as we know, it's great to be proactive when you're at the net, and tracking the ball is one really good way to plug the high percentage gaps. But I see lots of players tracking the ball moving from side to side. The problem with this is you get no body weight transfer going through your volleys, meaning that you have to swing, which we know is a problem. But also, by staying in line with your starting position, you're giving your opponents more opportunity to get it down at your feet. What we should really be trying to do is close the net down. If your partner hits a wide serve and you're looking to go out to cover that line, we want to move forwards into this position. Likewise, if we're looking to poach down the middle of the court, rather than just stepping out here, step up to the net to close the net down. By getting closer to the net, you're going to have far more opportunities to finish the point. From here, it's very, very tough to miss. Whereas if you sit back and just move laterally, like I said before, those balls are going to be much slower and much more difficult to put away. So tip number four is to close the net down. Don't just move from side to side. The fifth mistake that I see is a really big one, and it's poor communication. Now, communication in doubles comes in many different forms. I'm not asking you to use signals at the net, although when you get to a certain level and you're able to put your serve exactly where you want it to go, then it can be really helpful. But what I'm talking about is two types of communication. One is during point communication. Calling mine and yours is really helpful. Calling switch and stay and that sort of thing. But equally, in between points and in between game communication. The more you talk with your partner about what's going on in the match, the more comfortable you're both going to feel with each other, and more information is only a good thing. And so when you're playing, if you notice anything happening at the other end of the court, maybe one of the players is struggling on a certain shot, then talk to your partner about it, because if you're both on the same page, you're going to work together much more effectively. So tip number 5, communicate more. The 6th mistake that I see is people not subscribing to the Tennis Mentor. Just kidding. Although if you're not, do it now. But yeah, the 6th mistake that I honestly see doubles players making is them being reactive as opposed to being proactive. What I mean by this is lots and lots of doubles players, especially when they're at the net, are just waiting for the ball to come towards them. And when it's not coming towards them, they're making mistake number 1, which is ball watching. Now, the problem with playing reactive tennis is your opponents are fully in control of what's going on in the point. If you're just here waiting for the ball to come to you, it's either never going to come to you, or when it does, it's on your opponent's terms. And so playing more proactively is going to put things back into your control. If you're volleying on your terms, you're going to have much easier volleys. And so before each point, if you're at the net and your partner's serving, talk to each other about your plan. It may be that you're planning a poach on the first ball, or that you're planning a fake poach. But by having an intention on that very first ball after the serve, it's going to put you back in the driver's seat. Equally, if you're in the middle of the point and your partner hits a really good effective ball, putting your opponent under pressure, rather than just sitting back and waiting for the ball to float towards you, close down the net. Because any time your opponent is in trouble at the other end, they're going to be looking at just getting the ball back in play. And if you're sitting back, you're going to let the ball drop. By closing the net down, you're going to have a much easier opportunity to put the ball away. The 7th mistake that I see doubles players making is them choosing which side to play on based on whether they prefer their forehand or their backhand. Now, yes, when you're playing at the baseline, you are going to hit your outside shot more often than your inside shot. However, when you play up at the net, it's the other way around. You're more likely to play your inside shot as opposed to your outside shot. Generally speaking, we want to get to the net to finish the point. This is why you see lots of pro doubles players, if they're a righty playing with a lefty, playing the other way round to what club players play. Lefties tend to play on the right, righties tend to play on the left. This is because they want their forehand volleys covering the middle of the court. Another thing to consider when choosing sides is who deals with pressure better, as most pressure points are actually played on the ad side. If you're 40 love up or down, 40-30 up or down, or add up or down, you're finishing the game on this side. The only time you finish the game on the deuce side is at 40-15. And so that's another thing to consider when choosing your side. Don't just stick to whether you like forehands or backhands best. To be honest, my forehand is way stronger than my backhand, but I love playing on the ad side. Personally, because I like being in control towards the end of the game, but more importantly is I've got my forehand volley in the middle of the court when I'm at the net. Mistake number 8 is serving out wide more than serving down the tee. Yes, that's really effective in singles, but in doubles, the tee serve tends to be slightly more effective if you hit it well. The reason why the tee serve is much more effective is because it forces your opponents into the center of the court, giving them less angles to play with. And what this means for your partner at the net is they've got far more opportunities to intercept or poach. Of course, hitting your serves with variety is the best answer because you don't want to give your opponents any rhythm. But if you're constantly serving out wide, you're giving your opponent a nice down the line passing shot option or a really sharp cross-court angle. And I think one of the reasons why in doubles we see players serving out wide more often is kind of a problem in itself, and it's because players like to stand out wide to hit their serve. Some players are even taught to stand out wide. Now, the reason they may have been taught to stand out wide is this is near to the position that we want to be in after we've hit our serve if we decide to stay back. And so by serving here, players get lazy and they just wait for the next ball. I actually prefer to teach serving from nearer to the tee. Reason why is it gives you more options when it comes to where to hit your serve. It's much easier to hit a tee serve from near the tee than it is out wide. And another reason I like getting people to serve more from this tee position as opposed to wide is it stops them from being lazy. Once you land from your serve here, you have to move, whether that's moving out to the side if you want to stay back or moving in for a serve and volley, rather than getting lazy and just standing here after the serve. Mistake number 9 is always playing with the same doubles partner or being fussy about your partners. Yes, it can be much easier if you always play with the same partner, as you really get to know them and how they play, and you start to gel and work together well. But the problem with ease is you're not being challenged and you're not growing. So when playing doubles, try to play with as many different partners as you can, as this is going to make your game far more adaptable. It kind of links back to what we said about playing on certain sides. I also recommend playing on the deuce and the ad side and mixing that up as much as possible. And so by mixing up your doubles partners and which side you play on, you're going to give yourself a much better test, encouraging you to become a much more well-rounded player. And mistake number 10 is being predictable. You may have heard of Louis Cayer. He's one of the greatest doubles coaches of all time. British tennis are lucky to have him as their doubles coach. He's created the British tennis double system. And one of the most important things that he says a doubles player can do is create uncertainty for your opponent at the other end. By mixing up your court position when you're serving, returning, or at the net can really unsettle your opponent at the other end. Also, by mixing up what you do with your serves and returns can do the same. Most club level players get to play in one way. In fact, all of their opponents know exactly what they're going to do. They know that player A always slices his serve out wide. They know that player B has a continental grip for everything, so only hits with slice. And player C always hits lobs. Now, your goal as a doubles player is to not have an identity. And I know that sounds funny, but what you want is to be unpredictable. That makes you way tougher to beat. And so instead of your opponents knowing you for your game style, make them know you for being unpredictable. So as I said at the start, let me know in the comments below which of those 10 mistakes you think you're making. And if you want me to go into more detail and depth in any of those 10, let me know and I can make a standalone video for that topic. Thanks as always for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.